Again, dear friends and admirers of NK, it is a great privilege for me this afternoon to join the celebration of the launch of NK's book, The Politics of Change. It's a story from a certain perspective of the exciting dramatic changes in India in the last 60 years. When Narasimha Rao announced his new policy of reform and opening up, there was considerable skepticism. Manmohan Singh as finance minister, Chidambaram as commerce minister, came to Singapore in October 1991 to give a seminar. In February 1993, I led a delegation to India, which included a business delegation. Both Kishore and Tommy were in that same delegation. And it turned out to be a very important visit because for those of us who were there, we left India feeling less skeptical, more hopeful about the process of change, of restructuring. I remember vividly talking to the district collectors in Kanchipuram and in Mysore. I knew that in Delhi I would get the party line, but I put a certain discount factor on the rhetoric. Meeting those young men, bright young men in Kanchipuram and Mysore, I probed them, and I found, to my joy, that they had internalized the message. For those of us not familiar with the Indian admin service, it had its roots in the Indian civil service during the Raj, when the district collectors had powers of virtually life and death over local inhabitants. Young graduates, they were thrust into positions of authority, where they were judges, administrators, tax collectors, surveyors, all rolled into one role. But when we came back to Singapore, changing the perception of India and Singapore was not easy. We made some efforts, like the IT Park in Bangalore, which was successful. But progress was episodic, there were twists and turns, like that proverbial horse. There were many wanting to slow it down. I remember when Prime Minister Vajpayee came to Singapore, I think the year 2000, 2001, thereabouts. Between him and Prime Minister Goh Chok Tong, they agreed to launch free trade negotiations, a comprehensive economic cooperation treaty of SECA. The following morning, I had a private breakfast with Arun Shourie, who is, of course, long associated with the Indian Express, and a person whom I took to immediately because he's such an honest, forthright person. And he beguiled me into speaking frankly. I said, you know, this free trade agreement that the Prime Minister talked about, none of us believe that it will get anywhere. In fact, our officials in the Trade Ministry and Finance Ministry are completely cynical because we had false starts before. A lot of talk, in the end, nothing happening. Arun Shourie listened, probed me, and said, I will report this to the Prime Minister. I think God, oh please put this in the appropriate way because it's not my objective to cause offense. It's got to be diplomatic. I said, you know where I'm coming from. He said, don't worry. And he recounted this conversation in one of his many books about the reform process in India. And we succeeded eventually in negotiating the free trade agreement. The reason why we succeeded, the reason why, an important reason why India has been able to make progress even as administrations changed, even as policies were reversed, was because there were a group of insider bureaucrats who worked to change the system from within. It is true that an important reason for the initial slow pace of the Indian reform process was the inertia of the administration. So many rules, so many regulations, so many departments, each protecting vested interests and unwilling to try new methods. But they were not all like that. Like the district collectors I met, there were many in the system, all the way to the top. A minority, no doubt, but who understood the constraints, subverted the system at different points in order to achieve a strategic outcome which they believe passionately to be good for the Indian people. At that time, NK was in the Prime Minister's office in the Planning Commission. I was Minister for Trade Industry and had the good fortune of knowing him then and discussing with him how to clear some of the roadblocks towards achieving a free trade agreement. Then I realized how important it was to understand the system from within in order to better change it. A few years later, after the agreement was signed, I was in Delhi attending Kamal Nath's son's wedding. And I was chatting with DR N K Singh at the dinner reception. DR N K said, I got to leave now to attend NK's birthday party. I said, oh, please send him my good wishes, and I happen to have something to pass along. I never expected that our paths would meet again. Until Nalanda project came along. Montek was in Singapore. I think it was less than 2 years ago. We were having dinner along the river, talking about various things, one of which was the possibility of reviving Nalanda University. Montek was immediately interested and said, look, you convinced me, can you write me a paper? He asked me to write him a paper. It's hard to say no to Montek. So I hesitated at a moment and said, yes, I'll write you a paper. He said, I will show your paper to NK, who is now in Bihar, in the Planning Commission there, and was also working on this and will push the project from the other end. And our path happily crossed again. And now we are embarked as fellow travelers on a common journey to help build bridges in Asia. It is because there is, in the Indian system, wonderful and remarkable individuals like NK, that this incredible story we are now seeing unfolding before our eyes is possible. Modestly, he calls it a ringside view. Not at all. He is a ringside participant. Thank you for listening to me. Congratulations, NK, and I wish you continuing success in your work now in the state of Bihar, managing the center region dynamic. Thank you very much.